Welcome, everybody, to Fantasy Football Today, presented by BetMGM, the sports book born in Vegas. It is Wednesday. I'm in a good mood. I've got some weird good mood vibes you guys are going to have to match. So bring it on.
Oh, great.
Yeah, there it is. Look, we're gonna do Name That Player today. We're gonna preview
your version or the real version.
I don't know, my version. We're gonna preview an exciting Thursday night football game with this contrast and styles that I'm looking forward to talking about. We're gonna grade your trades. Of course, we're gonna tell you who to buy low on, who to sell high. Can anybody guess the most added player in fantasy leagues?
Oh, we're so good at this game.
Juju.
Juju is no. He's still only 24%.
He's hidden. He's hidden. People don't see him.
I gotta tell you, two leagues where I was last on waivers.
Yeah.
One of them are 20-team office league.
You got him?
I got him.
Yeah.
Wow. He's hidden.
It's amazing. Yeah, go get Juju. No, it's actually not a player. It's a group of players.
Eagles DST.
Eagles
DST. Yes, sir. Playing the Cleveland Browns. Actually, their next two opponents are the Browns and the Giants, who are both bottom five against DSTs. But all right, and number 2 is Tyrone Tracy, and number 3 is Tank Bigsby, and then the Texans, and then the Tolberts, and then we will get into the I have a quick CMC question, an email from Steve. He says, I'm 1-4, but let's pretend you're 1-4 or 2-3, okay? I have Christian McCaffrey. I'm desperate to trade him at this point. I'm wondering if you had any thoughts on these offers in a half PPR league. What would you do if you were the McCaffrey manager? Would you accept any of these trades? Devontae Adams for McCaffrey.
No.
I don't think so.
Chase Brown and Christian Kirk for McCaffrey.
What's your record? I'm sorry.
1-4, 2-3.
1-4, 2-3. 2-3, no. 1-4, yes. But I would try and shop around. But if that's the best I could do, then yes.
Yeah. Okay. And McCaffrey, he may not be back until week 10. So they have a bye in week 9. So you've got maybe 4 more weeks without the guy. And then the last one was Rico Dowdle for Christian McCaffrey.
Ew, no.
Yeah.
The Chase Brown deal is the one that's closest to being even.
But not if I'm 2-3.
I don't know if that even makes a big difference. Because at this point, if you're 1-4, how far out of it are you? How many teams are 4-1? How many teams are 5-0?
I mean, obviously every league is going to be different, but just in a vacuum. If I'm a game under 500 and I could hopefully still manage my way to being in that range, 3 games under is a little different.
Yeah.
I was going to look. Are any of you guys good in FFT or FFT league?
I will be starting hopefully this week when I get a little help.
I've got a good record.
I just beat Adam by 100 points. Yeah. I'm 4-1.
I had a heartbreaking loss.
Oh, you lost. Damn.
Oh, determined.
Lost on Kamara's garbage time last catch.
Oh,
I needed another one in order to win in our dynasty league.
So I'm 2-3. Of course, that team I started off with McCaffrey and Christian Rice, or Rashee Rice, also Christian Watson and Jalen Warren. So I'm looking for offers.
I actually got a trade offer in that league. I was offered by Robert, Marvin Harrison, and Ramondre Stevenson for Amon-Ra St. Brown and James Conner. Where do I hit the reject button?
I got to tell you, he said something cryptically to me and Heath going into a commercial break on our show last Wednesday. By the way, it'll be on CBS Sports Network today at 1 p.m. Eastern.
Yeah.
He said, I need help at receiver. He goes, but I got something planned that I think is going to work out. And he picked up Juju.
Oh, he's crushing it, Robert Turbin.
He's a
fantasy newcomer, and he's crushing.
Not a fantasy newcomer, but newcomer for us. He before the season, and there were various disagreements on each player. Very adamant that Saquon and Derrick Henry work out fantastic in their new spots, and he drafted both. No, I'm sorry, he drafted Saquon. And that's worked out very well. And knows his stuff.
All right.
Currently in third place. Nice job, Robert.
Let's see who knows their stuff today. Who are we buying low on, selling high on? Dave, you always have a nice prepared list. Would you like to start the buy lows?
I can definitely do it for buy lows because that list is longer than my sell high list. The first name on my buy low list is Tyreek Hill, who, again, not even 15 PPR points in another game without Tua, but it sounds like Tua is going to come back and be the quarterback for the Dolphins. And it seems like that's the key to the whole Dolphins offense, is that when he's playing, the receivers, specifically Tyreek, can put up huge numbers. And you know what Tyreek Hill is when he's got Tua under center. We're talking about a top 5, maybe top 3, maybe top 1 fantasy receiver. We know that the upside is humongous for him. And if fantasy managers are in a pickle, maybe they're 2-3 or 1-4, and they've got Tyreek Hill and they need points now. They'll shovel off Tyreek Hill to you, and you can get him at a discount compared to where we were drafting him a month and a half ago.
And by the way, Tua could come back in week 8. It's looking like week 8. That's the first time he's eligible. So you got to buy this week. Then the Colts, and maybe Tyreek Hill could be good against the Colts even without Tua, because they're horrible. And then Tua in week 8. And you know what? Maybe if you can't get Tyreek Hill, maybe you can get Jalen Waddle. Maybe that's the play, because obviously Hill's going to be much more expensive.
I like every time I like to do this, and I think it is a buy low. And there could be like 4 to 5 weeks of wide receiver 1 production. I do just like to remind people, November 28th at Green Bay, then the Jets, then the Texans, then the 49ers. Then you're in Cleveland in week 17 for the fantasy championships.
The Texans haven't been good against wide receivers, I don't think. Last
maybe there's one matchup that's not terrible.
Yeah, I mean, I think last year we were concerned because he had the Jets, Cowboys, and Ravens in the playoffs. He missed the Jets game. He scored 18.9 fantasy points against Dallas, and he did struggle 13.6 fantasy points at the Ravens. Earlier in the year, he faced the Jets and went 9 for 102 yards and a touchdown at the Jets on November 24th. So your concerns are valid.
I think just two things. This is your last week to buy low on them because they're on a bye and fantasy managers can't use them. So you're, again, looking at the Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle manager that's probably sub 500, because if you're above 500, there's no way you're trading them at this point. And to Heath's point, like, I'll take my chances with that, with certainly Hill.
Yeah.
But again, it's obviously contingent on what you're giving up. Like, you don't want to be trading that significant a player while you're above 500, knowing that that's still looming.
I got one. Would you trade Brian Thomas for Tyreek Hill?
If I'm above 500, I would absolutely do it.
I would.
I need 4 wins at least.
Okay. All right. Let's try to pick up the pace a little bit here. Last week got a little long with the buy lows, but go ahead, Dave. Keep going.
I think Chris Olave is an interesting buy low, but I think he's like a buy real low. I put him on the list before we knew that Derek Carr would miss multiple weeks. Is Spencer Rattler the quarterback? That's more intriguing to me than if it's Jake Haener. But I can't. No, but it's just what a rumor is going around, is that they might put Rattler in instead of Haener, which tells you all you need to know about Haener. And if they put in Taysom Hill, if he somehow is back under center for the Saints after all that he's been through, and we know that he's dealing with a rib injury right now, that would absolutely crush Chris Olave. But I wonder if you can get Olave dirt cheap with the idea that eventually his numbers bounce back. We know that can happen when Derek Carr is under center again. And maybe that offensive line will be healthy at that point when Carr comes back.
Are you going to just, if you buy low on Chris Olave, should you do it with the idea that you are not starting him until?
Yeah. Are we 3 weeks away from starting Chris Olave and you're acquiring him for that moment?
Well,
maybe
it's not the worst idea, right? You know, it's you can.
No, but that's, again, you're buying very low. You've got to go lower than normal. Like, if Derek Carr were okay, he'd still be a buy low, but like you'd have to go even lower. Like, I would rather have Brian Thomas Jr. Just comparing it to your prior question.
I agree with that. I would almost be buying him at this point with the intrigue of maybe Spencer Rattler being better for him than Derek Carr.
And he too has tough matchups coming up. But
hopefully he's not scared to throw into some tough coverage like Derek Carr has been.
Would you trade Rashid Shaheed for Chris Olave?
Yes.
Yeah, I would.
Because that's one that could suffer.
Last 5 games of the year, this is after their Week 12 bye. Rams, Giants, Commanders, at Green Bay, Heath, and Las Vegas in the fantasy championship.
All right. Jamie, go ahead. Buy lows.
I mean, this is probably the final window, and the days are closing to get Bijan Robinson and Breece Hall, because the matchups are fantastic this week, and hopefully they do what they're capable of doing. Bijan getting the Panthers and Hall getting the Bills. It's a little tougher to say the Jets are easy to trust right now because of the coaching change, and who knows what's going to happen there. They may change their play caller, which I think would be a benefit. I think the entire thing is going to end up being a benefit because Robert Saleh, I don't think, was a great head coach, and we'll see if how do you pronounce the new guy's name?
Ulbrich.
Mentioned. We'll see if Aaron Rodgers allows him to do it, but mentioned the idea of taking play calling duties away from Nathaniel Hackett. I doubt it happens, but in any event, hopefully those two guys take advantage of their matchups and we start to see the best of them moving forward.
Okay, Bijan. So yeah, let's do you still consider them first round caliber players, Bijan and Breece Hall?
No.
As far as
players, yes. Value, no.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Because we have to tell people what to give up for Bijan and Breece Hall.
Like at this point, if you're looking ahead, and it's difficult because of the challenge of it, guys like Jordan Mason and Chuba Hubbard, who are on borrowed time, to trade them for those particular players to a team that's maybe sub 500, those are moves I'd be looking to make.
I've got 13 players ahead of Breece and Bijan in the trade chart, not excluding quarterbacks.
Okay. 13 players. Okay, so who's right behind him?
Right. What do you mean right behind him?
Who's you said Breece Hall?
Yeah.
Who's 14 or 15?
Ken Walker.
Okay, so you have him just ahead of
They're yeah. In PPR, Breece is ahead of Walker because I don't know if Walker's catching as many passes as he did last week.
I would not be trading Ken Walker for those guys at this point.
I would rather have Ken Walker.
Yeah, same.
Okay. Interesting.
Ken Walker, I was going to mention this when we preview the game. He has, in his career, he has run 30 routes, 30 or 31 routes 3 times. That's his career high. 2 of them are the last 2 games. So Seattle, now they're running a lot of plays. They're throwing a lot of passes. I'm sure that has something to do with it.
Yeah.
But that is pretty cool that he's run 30 to 31 routes 2 straight games, and he's only done that 3 times in his career. That's a game changer. I mean, again, I don't think he's going to be like the third down back, but if they're willing to use him in the passing game, that's a huge.
Well,
huge...
Ryan Grubb came out this week and was questioned about the offense, and that apparently saying that the staple of this offense was going to be running the ball, and they've gotten away from running the ball. Who's that going to benefit?
Yeah, right. That's going to benefit Ken Walker, of course. He runs the ball.
If he continues to be relevant in the passing game, and they start to do a better job running the ball, like he's been a borderline superstar in the 3 games he's played.
Okay, I'm trying to find a trade that I can. I was like, let's make a trade on the air for Bijan Robinson. This league's not going to do it. I'm going to try this league. Okay, Jamie, give me one more, and then he can give me 2.
I don't have any more buy lows.
Okay,
I didn't want to give you 1,000 to make you yell at us about the show.
Well, you could make a trade in FFT and tell me what Jamie's going to give me in addition to Brian Thomas for Christian McCaffrey. Because I think Jamie's 4-1 in that league, and I'm 2-3. So I would say I've got 1 buy low and 1 question, and they both play the same position. The buy low is Jalen Hurts. I think currently QB 14, 18.9 fantasy points per game. And people seem to never think he's as good as his fantasy production anyway, so it's easier to buy low on him. He's only played 1 game with A.J. Brown, should have all of his weapons back, and should be getting more comfortable in the system. I still expect that Jalen Hurts is going to be a top 3 or 4 fantasy quarterback rest of season. Go get him if you can. And then the question is Josh Allen a buy low?
Yes.
You can try.
No, I know what you're saying, because I think a lot of people still feel like he's Josh Allen, and maybe they're right. But are they right? Or is he just kind of is this the bust call that we were waiting for? He's had these 2 huge games, but now it's actually maybe looks like, okay, maybe he's not going to be that good this year. I don't know which way it's going to go. I mean, I still think people value him very highly, though, Heath. I
did run a poll this morning for Dynasty and asked if people would rather have Lamar or Allen in Dynasty. Lamar's winning just barely. I wonder, Jaden, if you offered Jaden Daniels for Josh Allen, or would you even?
They're tied in the trade chart, and that's redraft. That's not dynasty. So I could see people overpaying for Jaden Daniels.
There's no chance I would do it in Dynasty.
Oh, no, you'd rather have Daniels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You think there's any chance I could make this trade? Garrett Wilson and Trey McBride. I gave up Wilson and McBride for Bijan and Chris Godwin.
No.
It's insulting, right?
How bad is the tight end situation?
He's got Isaiah Likely.
Doesn't
The
matter.
only way you can do this is you'd have to see Devontae Adams get traded someplace else.
No, I would be getting.
I think you just.
No, I understand that, but like if you offered me that trade, I would say I'm interested, but I'm gonna wait until Adams is traded someplace else.
I'm going to offer it.
The problem is you need his brain to be working in a couple of different ways, because he has to be really like focused on the fantasy points scored by Bijan Robinson and not on the ADP, but not focused on the fact that Isaiah Likely's been so much better than Trey McBride this year.
I know. Yeah, McBride is killing me here. I can't trade McBride. Nobody wants him. Maybe I'll trade.
You've traded McBride more than any other player.
Yeah, just once.
Do you think you could get only Bijan for Garrett Wilson and Trey McBride?
Then I'm going to be pretty bad at receiver. Then I'm going to be starting Xavier Leggett this week.
I would only be doing that if Bijan was Bijan, which he hasn't proven to be yet. So,
all right, I mean, I threw it out there. We'll see how long it takes for him to reject.
We complain about these types of fantasy managers all the time, and now you're one of them.
They didn't think it was crazy. I mean, Garrett Wilson leads the NFL in targets.
One game. Well, Dave, you were saying yesterday on Sports Network that Garrett Wilson's a sell high because
he is.
You might find someone that's not paying attention.
But like this is going to be that case. Like I think the offer is competitive without Godwin in it. With Godwin, it's an easy reject.
Okay, fair. But Godwin's coming off a bad game.
But I'm going to do it anyway.
He is a buy low, Godwin, I would say, because he led the team in receiving last week, I think. They just threw 24 passes. But if anyone's trying to get off the Chris Godwin train, it still looks pretty good, I think. Plus, obviously, Mike Evans is finally playing New Orleans this week. Is this accurate this time?
This is accurate, yes.
Yeah, so maybe he'll be horrible this week, and Godwin will be good. All right. I got to take a break here. Before we do that, it's time to sign up for BetMGM. If you haven't signed up yet for BetMGM, use the bonus code FANTASY, and you're going to get up to a $1,500 offer, first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using the bonus code FANTASY. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure you use the bonus code FANTASY when you sign up. We'll be right back on FFT.
We need your sports news anywhere.
We've got breaking news to bring you.
Then get your sports anytime you want them. Big trade news overnight to discuss.
Because we know you need sports all the time.
A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
A legend adds to their legacy.
We're bringing you that breaking news right here on HQ.
CBS Sports HQ, anywhere, anytime, all the time.
Yeah, I just want to say something here because this show is, I love talking trade, but one of the problems is it's hard to say, oh, trade this guy for this guy. That doesn't really happen all that often, a one-for-one trade. So it's hard for us to come up with hypothetical trades. So I think the best way to approach this is listen to the guys that we say are buy lows, right? And then try to, go to the team that has that player and think about an offer that makes sense for you. And maybe you upgrade. For example, we were calling Josh Jacobs a buy low last week, and I made an effort in one league to get him. And this is a league, the same one I'm making this Bijan offer, where I have Ferguson and McBride. And so I was trying to offer one of those tight ends plus one of my running backs for Josh Jacobs and an upgrade at another position or something like that. So I just want you to think of it like, let's get this guy in a deal because this is the best time to get him. His value is low and he's going to be better. But it is hard for me to be like one for one. Who would you trade this guy for that guy? Because I know those types of trades don't happen all that often.
Would it be easier if we asked our loyal and friendly audience to send trade offers that they've received or trade offers that they're thinking about making, and we review them?
Yeah, I did. I mean, that's coming up later in the show.
Oh, perfect. Good. We're on the same wavelength. This is amazing.
In terms of buy low or maybe even sell high, I just want to bring this up real quick. Some touchdown regression candidates. And if you have any to add, please fire away. But Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel have not caught a touchdown yet. That's despite Brock Purdy having the second most green zone pass attempts in the NFL behind Joe Burrow. The green zone is 1 to the 10-yard line. The red zone is 1 to the 20-yard line. But no touchdowns yet for any San Francisco receiver or any San Francisco player not named Ayuk not named Kittle or Juwan Jennings. Geno Smith's touchdown rate is 2.5%. It's insane. Leads the NFL in pass attempts. And obviously when, you lead the NFL in pass attempts, okay, your touchdown rate's probably going to go down, but 2.5% is super low. Mm-hmm. And then you got 3 guys who are at 10% or higher touchdown rates. Baker Mayfield, Joe Burrow, and Sam Darnold. And then Mayfield, I want to bring up, he's got like a 13% touchdown rate and a 5.5 yard intended air yard per pass attempt, 5.5 yard ADOT basically, which is the second lowest in football, ahead of only Mahomes. It's like, it's hard for me to imagine a quarterback having this good of a year with air yard per pass attempt this low. Are we missing? Because I kind of believe in Baker. I have him on a couple, like 4 teams. I think he's my most rostered quarterback. And
Big test this week.
Yeah, it is. But it was supposed to be a big test. Like last week, Atlanta was pretty good against quarterbacks, and he lit them up.
Not like this.
In a half.
So, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Heath.
I think it's the same thing I run into with Geno and buy low is like I don't think the perception of Baker Mayfield currently matches his fantasy ranking. So he's QB2, averaging 26 fantasy points per game. No, he can't keep that up. I do not believe he's going to be a top 4 fantasy quarterback rest of season. Probably not top 6. He's a fine QB1 though, and those are pretty valuable right now. So, if I can't shoot the moon in selling Baker Mayfield, I'm just going to keep starting him. And with Geno, yeah, he has some regression coming. He's QB 11 right now for the season. He's probably going to be very close to Baker Mayfield in that 6 to 10 range. But what type of profit am I making there?
No, but that's where you say, okay, I'll give you Baker Mayfield. You give me Geno Smith. Let's throw 2 more players in the deal, and I'll upgrade somewhere else because you think you're getting right. Like if you think they're pretty close, or let's say Dak Prescott, you probably think Baker Mayfield and Dak Prescott are pretty close, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
So I trade Baker Mayfield and David Montgomery. I get Dak Prescott and Bijan Robinson. Is that insane?
There's no way the Dak manager is doing that.
No.
Why?
I think a lot of people
I
would
don't
still prefer to have Dak over Baker rest of season.
Right.
Then Geno. Then Geno.
So I'm getting Geno and Bijan and giving you Baker and Montgomery. I don't know if the team with Bijan is happy.
All right. Look, the point is, if you think Baker Mayfield and Geno Smith are fairly similar rest of season, then you put those 2 in a deal, and you theoretically, quote unquote, downgrade from Baker to Geno Smith, and you try to get a big upgrade somewhere else. But in reality, you maybe haven't even downgraded that much a quarterback.
But to Heath's point, I don't think people will view Geno to Baker as a huge upgrade.
Oh, well, that's the thing. Some will. Look,
No,
I
get what you're saying. That you have to be buying into the fact that Geno is going to have not a significantly better, but a better second half of season than Baker is because of how one has been a little bit lucky, one has been a little bit more unlucky. I think that trade is doable if the Bijan manager is that completely frustrated and Geno has been sort of knocking at the door of 20 fantasy points, but seeing Baker, in the 30 point range. So that trade could potentially happen.
Well, I'm sorry. Look, it's hard for me to come up at the top of my head.
No, that's a good. Just take the quarterbacks out. Like that's the type of trade you should be doing to get Bijan. Like David Montgomery scores touchdown every week. He's been better than Bijan. Here, I'm going to give you this player. You give me Bijan, and let's see if we can make each other happy because my team's in a better spot than yours. You need to win now.
All right, let's talk about sell highs. Heath, you want to start? Give me some sell highs.
I do not want to start really.
Okay.
I think sell high is extremely difficult right now.
Agreed.
Just because of the landscape and the injuries. And the guys, sure, Baker Mayfield is a sell high. He's not going to be QB2. I don't think anybody believes that Baker Mayfield is what he's been.
He's 11th on the trade chart among quarterbacks.
Yeah, I pretty much believe him. I believe in him. Not as QB2, but as like a kind of a must start guy, I'm going to say.
I agree with that. And I think maybe the move then would be maybe the move here, Adam, is to quote unquote downgrade at quarterback. Let's say you've got Stroud and you're going to give Stroud and something for Baker Mayfield and something that's better than your something. Okay, so using your example, it's Stroud and Montgomery for Baker and Bijan. And now the person that's getting Stroud is thinking, okay, I'm downgrading a running back, but at least I'm upgrading a quarterback when you know that it's not really that much. They're probably downgrading based on what the fantasy production has been. But people just have this perception of Baker Mayfield. Yeah, he's doing great now. They're waiting for the other shoe to drop. It's the exact same thing with Darnold. And it just happened with Darnold.
Right. Okay, the question is the shoe going to drop with Baker? You guys seem to think he'll still be a QB.
I mean, look, again, this is somewhat of a telling week. He had one really difficult matchup so far this season, and he struggled against the Broncos. You could say the Falcons were a tough matchup. You could say, these other teams. The Broncos is really the toughest test, and it's his only game under 20 fantasy points. The Saints have faced a great matchup of quarterbacks and done very well against them. So I'm not saying sit Baker, but I just want to see how he comes out of this game if he's still plus 20 points. Remember, he's had a couple of games where he saved himself with some rushing touchdowns, and that's not something I think anybody wants to bank on for him. While he's doing it, it's not something that I think that's sustainable. So I would say, just from a sell high perspective, like, we got 2, maybe 3 pretty amazing free agents this week that you should be acquiring and trying to flip as soon as you can. One in particular is Juju, who we said pick him up. You can't use him this week. So if he's not going to do anything for your fantasy team, try to trade him to a team that is receiver needy for the bye weeks for the bye week for week 6, and maybe you get something that will help you long term. Or package these guys. Tank Bigsby, another one. Hey, look, he might be the starting running back for Jacksonville. You want this? Tyrone Tracy, if you want to throw him in that category too. But I think anytime you get these players that you can get for off waivers or your fab, and don't have that much confidence in them. I mean, I was looking at the comments all day yesterday. Juju sucks. Juju sucks. Juju sucks. There are clearly a lot of people that don't believe that he's going to be able to do this. I get it. Trade him. See what you get in return.
Yeah, but what would you expect in return for a guy that you literally just picked up off the waiver wire and your whole league knows it?
Yeah, I think you have to make some sort of package deals. But I mean, think about Heath's situation. There are plenty of people that have been decimated by injuries, and the Rashee Rice injury, the Rams receiver injuries, Malik Neighbors, who knows when he comes back from his concussion. I know these guys are coming back, but AJ Brown missed multiple weeks. Devontae Smith missed multiple weeks. Again, mostly the bye week guys, I think, are the ones you're sort of looking at and saying, can I turn Juju Smith-Schuster? Like, I'd be making this deal. Can I turn Juju Smith-Schuster into Jalen Waddle? I'd do that in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would.
Yeah, that's an Azer trade. No, I mean,
just an Azer trade.
But you're trying to get ahead of it from your perspective, and the Jalen Waddle manager can't use him this week. Probably not going to trust him next week.
Can't use Juju either.
True.
Yeah,
you've got to believe in Juju. If you're going to trade Juju, it's almost like you have to hear from somebody else in your league who goes, "Oh man, I really wanted to get Juju off waivers. You outbid him, or you outbid me for him, I should say, or you were just higher up in the waivers, but I really wanted him." And that's when you put your arm around that guy and say, "Well, I can still give you this shiny new Juju. What can you give me in return?" But I think it's that type of circumstance. He made the trade chart this week. He's 48th among wide receivers.
All right. Who else, Dave? Give me some sell highs. Oh, James Conner was a sell high for you?
Yeah. I mean, again, I'll just go back to what I said at the beginning of the season. It's already happened to one of the running backs in his age range in Aaron Jones. We know that Connor's got an injury track record. I believe he's missed 3 games in 4 of the last 5 seasons or 5 of the last 6 seasons, at least 3 games in that span. So he's been awesome. You should only be getting something awesome in return. But now might be the time just to consider trying to sell before the potential injury that he's typically suffered does happen.
All right, Dave, you're up.
Let's start with DeAndre Swift, who has been awesome the last 2 weeks. There's no denying that. There's no denying that the Bears have started to scheme him into their offense a little bit better. And there's definitely 2 running backs in Chicago, not 3. So some of the things that we were worried about 2 weeks ago with DeAndre Swift, those worries have gone away. Can he keep it up? And can you get a lot for him in trade? Could you package him with something for Bijan Robinson at this point? And I think the answer to that question is hell yeah, you could.
Okay, I like that. DeAndre Swift. Oh, I'm out.
Oh, the podcast.
I like that.
The YouTube stream just got a lot better.
Can you hear me?
This is nice.
We hear you. We can't see you. You hit the start video button there. Now you're back.
Could we do
camera there?
Oh, look at that.
It would be we could just do every show like that where we just hear you, but we can't see you.
We sold high on Azer's equipment.
Do we want to hear him or see him? Like, I wouldn't mind seeing him like frustrated, like we couldn't hear him, like just getting really pissed.
Bang his arms all over the place. Looked like George Costanza from that episode of Seinfeld.
Any more sell highs?
Oh yeah, we're changing the subject. Back to sell high. Back to doing our job. Is Garrett Wilson a sell high? 22 targets, 13 catches, over 100 yards, a touchdown.
You got to do it now, and you got to do it to somebody that thinks Devontae Adams isn't coming there.
I do wonder what's going on with the Devontae Adams sitch, because if there was ever a time where it made sense for him to get traded to the Jets, it would have been yesterday.
Does he still want to?
Yeah, I don't know.
What a
And
dysfunctional
Derek Carr
situation.
just got hurt. Like, all of a sudden, Devontae Adams might have.
If I'm him, I mean, get me to Buffalo. Please get me to Buffalo. Get me to Kansas City. Get me anywhere where I know he wants to play with a quarterback that he likes. Get him with a quarterback that's actually good right now.
Now I'm going to ask.
Oh, not Buffalo.
Yeah. Okay. So where's Garrett Wilson on your trade chart?
Garrett Wilson. Yeah, I need a minute, and by minute I mean
I'm gonna guess wide receiver 15.
No, he's lower than that. He's 22.
22. All right. Who's ahead of him?
Brian Thomas is tied with him. So is Devontae Smith, just ahead of him. Godwin, Ayuk is definitely ahead of him. Jaden Reed's ahead of him. Tyreek's ahead of him.
Okay.
Behind him, Pickens, McLaurin, Zay Flowers, Stephon Diggs.
Gotcha. I wanted to ask about Rico Dowdle. Where do you have him ranked this week? Because this week he has the Lions. I know Ken Walker had a huge game, but they have a great run defense. Then he has a bye. Then he's at San Francisco, which is only one lead running back has averaged more than 3.7 yards per carry against the Niners, but that was their most recent game, and they lost Javon Hargrave for the season 2 games ago, so maybe their run defense isn't as good. But I look at Dowdle coming off a 20 carry game. He's caught a touchdown in 2 straight games.
Great selling.
Fumbled at the goal. I mean, yeah, I could certainly make the case that he's the great sell-high candidate, but at the same time, obviously Rico Dowdle is becoming close to a feature back for the Dallas Cowboys, which is really exciting. So the next 3 weeks might be a little dicey, but do I want to give up Rico Dowdle? You say great sell-high, Jamie?
Well, of course, for a guy that was drafted as a bench option for you, unless you're completely desperate to start him, then clearly you can't afford to trade him unless you're getting something of an upgrade in return. But at the same time, you mentioned the schedule right now. The schedule to close the season gets much better for him if he can stay healthy and maintain this role. So, you have the 2 sides of that. But yeah, I mean, that goes back to the Juju argument. Like, anytime you're getting production from a player that you don't need, you should clearly be trying to trade them for something better in some sort of package or just straight up.
Okay. Yeah. It's just like, this is why I drafted Rico Dowdle, so he could become the lead running back for the Cowboys and be a major steal.
Right. But like, I mean, I don't know. I think I have Dowdle in like 3 leagues. 2 of them, I'm not using him at all. So if I don't need him, like, why would I not try to trade him to someone who has bye week concerns, injury concerns? And, okay, Heath is not going to trade Christian McCaffrey for Rico Dowdle. We brought that up before. But if I gave Heath, Brian Thomas, and Rico Dowdle for Christian McCaffrey and maybe another receiver that I can use, I'm sure he'd be interested in that.
By the way, if you are trading Christian McCaffrey for someone, that someone's bye week should probably be late. Like, what's the point of trading Christian McCaffrey for someone that you're not going to be able to use for one of the weeks that you can't use McCaffrey? It has to be like a really good player. You know what I mean? Like, you need to maximize that time before McCaffrey gets back. So just keep that in mind. Because like I said, Rico Dowdle will be a bad person. It's a short-term outlook may not be great.
Yes, but you're not just betting on, I've got to get production now because Christian McCaffrey is going to smash these guys when he gets back. It's also a little bit of a bet on a 28-year-old running back who has tendonitis in both of his Achilles and a calf injury. And maybe he's just not going to be the 25 touch per game guy in the second half that he's been his entire career.
No, that's absolutely true. All right.
I wonder if it's better to be rooting for the 49ers to lose while still staying in playoff contention. I know that sounds funny, but not the division running away from them, so that they're hoping McCaffrey comes back to save them, or you're rooting for them to win, and then McCaffrey's kind of the cherry on top, but that probably limits his touches.
Whatever it takes to get McCaffrey back on the field is what I'm rooting for.
Yeah.
Hey, Heath, real quick, give me an FFT Dynasty promo.
Had Dan Schneier on yesterday. You definitely want to go listen to that episode. We talked about what do you do with these vets whose value is going up. The Derrick Henrys, the James Connors, maybe Cooper Kupp coming back pretty quick, the Travis Kelce rebound. Are you buying these guys? Are you selling these guys? Pretty good dynasty discussion. And we've got lots of fun things. Had Matt Waldman on last week talked about looking at the rookies after 4 weeks and what's changed. He was a big Neighbors over Harrison guy back in April. And so that's looking pretty good.
Yeah. All right. I remember that, by the way. I was listening to that episode back in April. I was listening to it on my way to opening day for the New York Yankees.
Ooh, big game tonight.
Right. Yeah. All right.
Is there a bet between you two?
No, I don't bet on losers, so I'm not making this bet at all.
We tried to make a bet, Dave, though, after the Yankees won the first game. He's like,
he doesn't want to bet anymore.
They're frauds.
I'm just happy. Stealing one game from a team with 17 future Hall of Famers is such an accomplishment that I'm just really proud of the little team that could.
No, I mean, but honestly, like the Yankees have two good players. So, okay, and one of them is the worst player in playoff history. Like Aaron Judge he's horrible in the playoffs, and so it's killing them. All right, we're going to take a break, and we'll do news and notes, preview Thursday night, name that player, grade that trade, and much more after this.
CBS Sports HQ, giving you college football coverage unlike anyone else.
We're talking Big Ten.
Pre- and post-game coverage.
Are you encouraged with the way that this team responded?
Along with breaking news.
A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
Highlights and expert analysis.
That streak could be in jeopardy here.
Sure. What was your main takeaway from this game? How impressive was his domination?
That really changed the football game.
Let's go ahead and have some more fun.
Another wild ending.
The chaos continues.
Turn to CBS Sports HQ.
News and notes. Robert Saleh was fired. Defensive coordinator Jeff Ulbrich is the interim head coach, and hopefully they make some type of changes on offense. And the report is that Robert Saleh was going to demote, maybe fire Nathaniel Hackett, the offensive coordinator, and before he was able to do that, he got fired. Drake May is expected to start for the Patriots. Heath, does this matter?
Yeah, it's exciting and fun, and I am looking forward to seeing what Drake May does. And it might be something good later in the season for Demario Douglas or Jalen Polk. It does not matter for week 6 because the Houston Texans are incredible.
Justin Fields is expected to start this week. Russell Wilson's not quite healthy enough, but he's making progress. They're at Las Vegas, and they get the Jets next week. Derek Carr, we already talked about this. He could miss multiple weeks with an oblique injury. Tampa Bay this week, and then Denver on a Thursday. So you can expect probably at least a 2-game absence, and Spencer Rattler may start for the Saints. We shall see. Running back news. Cordero Patterson is out. Jalen Warren is doubtful. Aaron Jones is week to week, but seems like he does not have a long-term injury as they have a bye and then Detroit. And Devin Singletary, according to the New York Post, is likely to play this week. Sunday night against the Bengals. Rashee Rice is out for the season with an LCL injury. Dallas left tackle Tyler Guyton has a good chance to play this week. Seattle and San Francisco come into their Thursday game pretty beat up. San Francisco safety Talanoa Hufanga tore ligaments in his wrist. He could go on IR. Cornerback Charvarius Ward has a bruised knee. I don't necessarily get the sense that he won't play, but we'll see what today's practice reports say. And kicker Jake Moody is out. For Seattle, edge rusher Uchenna Nwosu is on IR with a thigh injury. He's had an injury-plagued season so far. Defensive tackle Byron Murphy is likely out. Cornerback Reek Woolen. Linebackers Derek Hall and Boye Mafe. They're going to be questionable. So it's like I want to talk about all these cool things when we preview this game, but the fact is the Seahawks defense might be a shell of itself.
Yeah, these aren't cool things. These
no,
are
that's
disappointing
not cool.
things for Seattle.
It's the stats that are cool. Las Vegas defensive tackle Christian Wilkins is out indefinitely. They already have a bad run defense. Now they're missing Christian Wilkins, big offseason addition, and they get Pittsburgh this week. Cincinnati cornerback Dax Hill is on IR as they face the red-hot New York Giants. Micah Parsons has a chance to play, but he is iffy, and Pittsburgh's defense is also pretty beat up as they face the ice-cold Las Vegas Raiders. San Francisco's at Seattle, David. All right. Receiving profile of the game. Let's take a look at what Deebo Samuel is doing as he has 27 targets, 17 catches, 233 yards, and no touchdowns in 4 games. His route depth is up a little bit, but it's still pretty low. But his ADOT, Deebo Samuel's ADOT is 10 yards. His last 3 seasons, it was 8.5, 4.2, and 6.6. His yak per catch is a career low. I'm starting to wonder if this is not the offense that Deebo is going to thrive in. They are second in the NFL in air yards per pass attempt. Last year, they were 11th, so they're no longer this dink and dunk team. Purdy does like to throw the ball down the field, but this is not the Deebo Samuel profile that we're used to seeing. And then the other role of the game or profile of the game is something I already mentioned. Ken Walker, 30th to 31 routes in 2 straight games, only the second and third times that's happened in his career. But, I'm going to resist the temptation to talk about this game for 30 minutes because I think on paper it's absolutely fascinating with contrasting styles. But let me just put it this way. Who do you consider a must start in this game? Heath, you can start.
Must start both of the running backs, Jordan Mason and Ken Walker. I'm starting DK. I'm starting Ayuk. I'm starting Deebo. I'm starting Kittle.
Okay.
And I don't really have a problem with starting Purdy or Geno. I can't quite go to must start with those guys, but they're starting quarterbacks.
Anyone want to weigh in here? Dave, your thoughts on all these games?
I think Heath got it right. I think it was a pretty kind of an obvious question and answer to give because you know who's good. I think people are wondering what to do with JSN and whether or not they should trust him again. He scored last week. He doesn't do that very often. But anytime there's a game where you think Seattle's going to be trailing, that means they're going to be throwing. I didn't think that would be the case last week. I got proven wrong. The Giants played well and it forced Seattle to throw a lot. JSN had a good game. I know the coaching staff for Seattle wants to run the ball. I don't know if they're going to be able to do it with huge success. Can they stay competitive giving the ball to Kenneth Walker 20 times? Yeah, maybe. But I think ultimately the Niners will have a lead. The Seahawks are going to have to throw. JSN is in the flex conversation for sure.
I mean, it's easy to say that, but the 49ers haven't been running away from teams. So I would think this is going to be a competitive game with the hope that Seattle's defense just doesn't get blitzed tremendously by this, what should be coming from the 49ers offense. So that would take Seattle out of their run game, but it's seemingly not bad for Ken Walker. I think, JSN is just going to kind of be one of these guys that hovers around wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 territory, depending on what your team needs. This should be one of those games where they're throwing again because of how their defense is so beat up.
Yep.
And so I hesitate to say he's in the must start category, but it's hard to overlook, again, when these game scripts are in his favor. By the way, the play that he made on Geno's run was unbelievable if you haven't seen it.
I don't think I did.
So he fooled 2 Giants defensive backs thinking that the ball was in the air. He's
Cool.
running and he looks over his shoulder and sees Geno running. So he sticks his arm up like this and starts sprinting, and they just keep chasing him.
Oh, and they follow him?
Geno's just running right behind them.
That's so brilliant.
JSN, I mean, look at the targets for the Seattle receivers. DK Metcalf has 43. JSN has 40. And Lockett has 32. But you might be interested to know, JSN has 3 fewer targets than DK Metcalf. All 3 wide receivers have 2 to 3 red zone targets. JSN leads the team with 3 end zone targets.
Part of that target is the New England game when he
right. I was about to go and look at that.
Yeah,
Yes.
but
16 of his 40 came in one game, and it was the overtime game. His targets this season have gone 2, 16, 3, 12, 7. So I
Metcalf
think,
also had a lot of targets in the Patriots game too, to be fair.
Yeah.
I think what this means is that this is a double-digit target game.
Yes.
Every other
Both
game.
him and DK.
all right. Well, here's what. Okay, we can.
And Lockett's a good sleeper too.
Yeah, if you need
Well,
11
you
PPR
guys
points.
are expecting a high scoring game. The total is 49, so that's very high. So that's great. What about Geno Smith versus Purdy? Who do you like better?
If Purdy does not have a good game this week, then it's time to just the panic alarm's got to
Hold on. Let me just say this is what I find so fascinating for into this kind of stuff. And again, it might not matter because of the injuries for Seattle.
That's the point.
But we don't know that all those guys are going to miss the game. But okay. I wrote in my notes last week about the Cardinals. I wrote a sneaky bad matchup for Purdy. Arizona gives up a lot of yak, but not a lot of deep completions. Usually that would play right into the hands of Brock Purdy, but this season he is getting very little yak and throwing the ball downfield, but that could always change. Well, I could say the same exact thing for Seattle. They have allowed 3 completions of 20 or more air yards. 2 of them were last week, though. I will say that.
Mm-hmm.
Who's their head coach? It was Baltimore's defensive coordinator last year. Last year, the Ravens gave up the 4th fewest completions of 20-plus air yards, and Brock Purdy had the worst game of his career against the Ravens at home last year. The Seattle Seahawks have seen, though, the 3rd lowest ADOT. So teams are throwing short on them all the time. That's what is so interesting about this matchup. It's like Purdy wants to throw the ball downfield. Nobody does that against the Seahawks so far, and they don't get beat deep. Although they did by Slayton twice last week. Is this just a product of them playing horrible quarterbacks for the first 3 games? Maybe.
It's X's and O's and Jimmy's and Joe's. McDonald had a lot of great players last year, and he has good players on the roster this year. They're just so beat up. And so this is Jared Goff, who he wasn't a great fantasy option coming into that game, goes 18 for 18 and carves them up. Yes, he had a receiving touchdown, but still, he was extremely efficient. Daniel Jones, who we know has had a very good season, he goes in there without his best receiver and beats them up. Like, this has to be a layup game for Brock Purdy.
Okay, so who would you start Purdy over then? Would you start him?
I would start him over Baker. I know that's not popular, but I would start him over Baker.
Okay, how about Baker against the Saints? How about Kyler Murray or Purdy?
Kyler.
At Green Bay.
Kyler, it's funny. He's last week was finally where it showed up a little bit. He's run for 45 yards or more in all but one game this season. Like, that has to start to turn into better fantasy production.
I do have Purdy over Kyler. And I'm the low guy on him, but I've got Purdy over Josh Allen.
Kirk Cousins or Purdy? Cousins at Carolina.
Cousins. Another team that everybody just beats up on. Like, Cousins should do that too.
I've got Purdy.
All right. So we like Purdy. 9th for Heath. I think 13th for Dave and 10th for Jamie. Okay. Start Mason, start Walker. No questions. Let's talk about the 49ers wide receivers. Are they both easy starts this week? And again, I'm just like Deebo Samuel. Let me just say this. Deebo Samuel has, oh, damn it. I lost my stat.
I mean, he had 2 great games to start the year, 18 fantasy points in each of his first 2 games. And then he had 2 bad games. And this is what the 49ers do. They've got too many weapons when everybody's healthy. And one of them's going to be bad every week, but you just have to start all of them every week.
Here's the one thing, that week 1. Yeah, I'm going to start Deebo. Look, I'm going to start Deebo.
He's the number 2 receiver.
One game, he had 8 carries, 23 yards, and a touchdown. He's got 1 game so far.
He does that sometimes.
8 carries. He's had 9 carries. He's had 7 carries since week 1 total.
But he had 23 yards. Sometimes he has 2 carries for 31 yards and a touchdown.
All right. I'll start him. Do I start him over Marvin Harrison Jr.?
No.
I don't think so.
I would.
DJ Moore against Jacksonville or 49ers guys?
Oh, DJ Moore.
Ayuk, Moore, Deebo.
I'll go Moore, Ayuk, Deebo.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah. Who's a running back? How about DeAndre Swift versus them?
I would start Swift over Deebo. I would start Ayuk over Swift in PPR.
Agreed.
I think full PPR, I'd take both the 49ers wide receivers.
How about half PPR, J.K. Dobbins at Denver or 49ers receivers?
Both 49ers receivers.
Yeah. Both.
Metcalf is a must start. Geno is not a bad start. Geno or Daniel Jones?
Jones.
Is Neighbors back?
Give me either scenario.
I'll go Geno if no Neighbors, Jones if Neighbors is back.
Info in our chat wants to know Geno or Jared Goff against the Cowboys, right? Yeah.
I currently have Goff over Geno. I have Daniel Jones over
Geno
both.
too. That will probably change if Michael Parsons plays, but we won't know that by the time.
I have Geno over Goff.
Start Kittle, start Walker, and then JSN. So Metcalf people are going to start. JSN, although I wanted to look up his history against Charvarius Ward. I felt like it wasn't so great, but I don't know. Charvarius Ward, by the way, is injured, so he may not even play. Yeah, JSN, what is he like, around the 30s for you?
27?
Yep. Mid-20s.
Pretty big difference, I think, between PPR, half PPR, and non. He's been he needs those catches. I think he has 1 game over 51 yards this season.
I'm just going to read some chat questions. Geno or Fields?
Geno.
Geno.
Would you trade Rashid Shaheed for Deebo?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. If you can make that happen.
Deebo or Dontavian Wicks this week?
Deebo.
All right. That's it for this game. Oh, wait. Before you sing it. Niners DST, start or sit?
Low-end starter.
Low-end starter.
Nah.
That was horrible. Let's play a game called Name That Player or Coach. Throw a little twist in there. Get some coaching tendencies in there.
Oh, great.
All
Name
right.
that player or coach. Okay.
I am
we
the
say our name if we want to guess?
Yeah.
Okay.
I am the number 8 running back per game in both PPR and non-PPR. I am 15th in rushing yards per game for running backs. And I am 17th in receiving yards per game among running backs. So 15th in rushing, 17th in receiving yards per game, but 8th overall per game. If my last name were my birthplace, then roll tide.
Dave.
Yes.
David Montgomery?
Correct, Dave Richard. And since the start of last season, I have scored in 17 of 20 games that I have not left with an injury.
Wow.
So we don't love touchdown-dependent people. I don't know if I'd call him dependent, but
he's touchdown dominant.
It's hard not to expect him to score.
He is touchdown dependent. He just always scores.
Yeah.
All right, next up. Dave's winning 1-0. I think
we should quit the game.
I am the number 3 wide receiver in non-PPR, number 5 wide receiver in full PPR overall for the season, not per game. I am 41st in targets among wide receivers.
Heath.
Jamar
Chase.
Incorrect.
Wow.
I love the confidence, though. I have scored 3 touchdowns, but I have only 2 red zone targets and 1 green zone target. I am averaging 14.8 yards per target. For reference, no, hold on. I don't know about that. Brandon Ayuk led the NFL with 12.8 yards per target last year. I'm averaging 14.8 yards per target.
What did you say his target was?
41st among wide receivers.
Yeah, okay.
Heath, go ahead.
Nico Collins.
Oh, 2 wrong answers for Heath.
Okay.
It's got to be
41st in targets. There's nowhere.
Jamie.
Brian Thomas.
Jaden Reed.
Yay! 3rd time's the charm. Jaden Reed.
I ruled out Jane Reed because you said total points scored. And so I thought to myself, yeah, that is crazy.
Malik Willis, and he's the number 5 wide receiver in fantasy.
I tweeted this out earlier this week. In Jordan Love starts, Jaden Reed is wide receiver 1 on the season. Tucker Kraft is tight end 1 season on the season.
But is he too efficient? Is this a sell high?
No, because he's still being valued as a number 2 wide receiver.
Fair. Okay.
If you can turn Jaden Reed into Tyreek Hill, Jaden Reed and something, Tyreek Hill, 100%.
I'd rather have Jaden Reed.
No, I wouldn't do that.
All right.
I'm all in on Jaden Reed.
All right, next one. This one's a coach. I am known for my intense practices. I am big into conditioning. My team better know the plays. I made my colleague's son puke, according to my colleague. At the end of the season, I will host the entire team for a barbecue, for which I will start seasoning a rack of ribs 3 days prior to the event and spend most of the time talking to the dads about how much I love my smoker. Dave?
Heath Cummings.
That's me.
That is you. He didn't really make your son puke, did he, Jamie?
Yeah.
Did you really? Wait, did you tell that story?
I didn't know that he puked until after I told the story that day.
Yeah, Coach Heath.
Listen, Keith, I was very praiseworthy. Don't think this was negative.
No,
very praiseworthy. I was very impressed.
I love it.
Gotta get in shape.
Yeah, I love it.
It's true.
All right, a couple more segments here. This
5 out, young man. 5 out.
Stats I find
Bobby Knight Jr. sitting here.
Give me some quick fantasy analysis on these, if they're even worthy of fantasy analysis. Stats I find interesting. Wan'Dale Robinson is 2nd in the NFL in targets inside the 10-yard line behind Deontay Johnson. And only one of them came without Malik Neighbors. Wan'Dale Robinson, 2nd in the NFL in targets in the green zone.
Were any of them in the end zone? It seems like they're all like 2 yards past the line of scrimmage.
It's okay. He had one of those last week, and he ran right into the end.
I love Wan'Dale Robinson. I think he's a borderline number 1 if there's no Neighbors, and a borderline number 2 if Neighbors plays.
This week, or you mean rest of season? Just this week?
Well, this week.
Yeah. No,
depends. Is Neighbors playing the rest of the season?
I think he's a top 25 wide receiver rest of the season.
Wan'Dale does not have a single end zone target.
There you go.
Daniel Jones would have to be at the 1 yard line to target Wan'Dale Robinson in the end zone.
He might throw it behind the line of scrimmage.
Yeah. Among 20 tight ends with 20 or more targets, Trey McBride ranks 18th out of 20 in yards per target, ahead of only Colby Parkinson and Dalton Schultz. But he ranks first with a 27% target per route run rate. But he's third in ADOT, and his catch rate isn't so great.
That's bad.
So it's weird. It's like McBride is getting targeted so much on his routes, but everything's downfield for them. Marvin Harrison's got one of the highest average route depths. So I don't know what to make of it, McBride. I love the target per route run rate, 27%. That's phenomenal, but he's not producing really.
I've been disappointed, obviously, especially with the lack of touchdowns, but we've got like 6 tight ends that are averaging 10 fantasy points per game. We're not going to complain about Trey McBride.
No, but is he a buy low or is he a hold or what?
Oh, he's a buy low.
He's certainly not a sell.
Well, tell that to the people in my league who I'm trying to sell them to. They won't take them.
No one's going to give you like the same value that you took him at on draft day.
Yeah. All right. Next stat. Marvin Harrison is 4th among wide receivers in ADOT. No, sorry. Marvin Harrison is 4th among wide receivers in average route depth. But the 3 guys ahead of him are Alec Pierce, Justin Watson, and Jalen Hyatt.
Right.
So that's terrible. But look at the guys right behind him. Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and Jalen Naylor. 3 Vikings. But it's weird. It's like, I hate that Marvin Harrison's average route depth is 4th, but it's hard for me to be like, well, this is a big worrisome sign when Justin Jefferson is 5th. Although I guess you could say, he's not Justin Jefferson. Anyway, I don't know what you guys think about that. I think it might be hurting Marvin Harrison's value. I don't love the way they're using him.
It makes him more of a boom bust type player. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And the top 10 teams in plays per game. A couple teams on this list that I think are 3 teams on this list that I think are really encouraging. Houston, Philadelphia, Baltimore, Detroit, and Chicago is 5. That's one of the teams. San Francisco, Miami, Giants are 8th. That's another one. And Dallas is 9, and Seattle is 10. Seattle was last season.
Seattle was 2nd last week.
In plays?
Yes.
What do you mean?
I'm just making the point that we're really, really early. And for the most part, you should expect everyone to be regressing back towards the mean at this point, because Seattle's had an overtime game and they had a 70-play game in the first 4 weeks.
Chicago has Seattle's old offensive coordinator who was running very few plays with the Seahawks. They're 5th. And I do think like the Giants offense, we're kind of trying to buy into Neighbors, to Daniel Jones to a degree, to Wan'Dale, to Tracy. They're not that good. So they're going to have to run a lot of plays, I think. And it's encouraging that they have so far. And it's not like they're getting the doors blown off of them or anything like that. They've been a pretty competitive team. So they're 8th in plays. That's good. I don't have pace stats. I don't know if anybody has pace stats, but that might be interesting too.
So I've got pace stats just for the season. I don't have anything with neutral pace, but I've got time of possession per play.
Oh, yeah.
So how much time ticks off between plays? If you thought about it, you could name the number 1 team.
Dolphins.
Nope. Dolphins aren't even top 12. The Chargers with their big offensive line and run heavy ways and old school coordinator.
Oh, they're the slowest. Yeah, no, who's the fastest?
Would you like to guess the Dolphins?
Yes.
You're incorrect. They're not even top 10 in that either. This team, name that team. It's the Cowboys.
Dallas. Give me the
Cowboys are actually the fastest. Colts 2nd fastest. Falcons 3rd fastest. Seattle's 4th.
Okay.
Carolina's 5th. I don't know if this stat really helps anything.
That's interesting. All right, let's grade the trade and we'll end the show. From Greg, half PPR, send Javonte Williams and Dalton Kincaid. Get Tank Dell and Jake Ferguson. Javonte and Kincaid for Dell and Ferguson.
If you can pull it off, sure.
Really?
C plus. I mean, I'd much rather have Ferguson than Kincaid.
Agreed.
All right.
That's the side I want.
I was shocked, and maybe you guys know this. Kyle Pitts has outscored Dalton Kincaid this year.
Yeah.
He's had 2 good games and Kincaid's had 1.
Oh, Heath, who has more fantasy points in PPR, Mark Andrews or Charlie Kohler?
Kohler.
I would assume Kohler. Mark Andrews has had one not terrible game, and Kohler outscored him.
Jamie, you got this wrong. You got this wrong yesterday. It was Mark Andrews by 1 point. At 1 point, Mark Andrews. Rob Thomas.
I like to be consistent.
Get AJ Brown and Cooper Kupp. Oh, no. Get AJ Brown. Give Cooper Kupp and Garrett Wilson in PPR.
It's close to fair.
This feels like somebody that needs a win now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, long term, I think long term, I'd rather have the Kupp Wilson side, but it's a square deal.
It just depends on how much longer Kupp is out. Like if he comes back next week, then you probably lose this deal just because Kupp and AJ Brown could be relatively close. If he's not another 3 weeks, then you win the deal, especially if Adams goes to the Jets.
For what it's worth, McVay wouldn't guarantee that he'd be back in week 7, but they said that they were targeting that game for Kupp's return.
So if he's not back in week 7, then they wasted a roster spot on their team.
Right, exactly. Well, sort of. They had so many players go on IR that they designated to return that they couldn't really put more on who could come back. That's one of the NFL's dopey rules.
And again, like I said with McCaffrey, like there's no guarantee that Cooper Kupp's coming back and just playing 10 games.
Although the idea of Cooper Kupp coming back and having games without Puka Nacua screams like exciting. 12, 15 targets. Yeah, of course.
Okay, let's get going here. Ready? Next up, it's from Will. Bigsby for Ingram. I have Andrews and Otten. I have Walker, Mixon, Eckler, and Bigsby.
I would rather just play tight end waiver game and keep Bigsby. See what happens.
Bigsby and see what happens. Yeah.
Joey, give up Breece Hall. Get Bijan Robinson. Half PPR.
6 of one, half dozen the other. I mean,
yeah. Why?
See?
Yeah.
Yeah.
AB
Listen,
says,
for now, Bijan is higher than Breece, but could you imagine how low Bijan will fall if he has a bad game? If he has a 20 carry, 60-yard, no touchdown game against Carolina.
AB says Chuba Hubbard and Tutu Atwell for Christian McCaffrey. I have Jordan Mason.
Oh, if you're getting McCaffrey, that feels like a huge win.
Yeah, I mean, Mason's on the clock at this point. I mean, excuse me, Hubbard's on the clock at this point.
Ryan gives up Lad McConkey and Juju Smith-Schuster. Gets Brian Robinson Jr. Half PPR.
It's a good trade.
Yeah.
P+, yeah.
That's the kind of trade I think Jamie was talking about earlier with waiver wire guys. From Jumpman, give up Dak and Debo. Get Mahomes and Garrett Wilson. Interesting.
See?
Again, I'd be like, why?
Right. Feels a little lateral. If you want to get away from Garrett Wilson, then I get it.
All right, guys. We are out of here, and we'll talk to you tomorrow with Start or Sit for the AFC home games on Fantasy Football Today. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, everybody. We'll see you later. See you later.